The unspeakable things of Mao Zedong and the great leap forward. When we think of Mao Zedong, we often think of him as a revolutionary hero who brought communism to China. Well, just hold on there. What if I tell you that there's a darker side to his legacy as well? It's always been overlooked, and we don't often talk about it. Hello, friends. Well, if you often fantasize about the past and really want to know about the history of ancient civilizations, then you're at the right place. Welcome to Unthinkable Past, a channel better known for dishing out the outlandish ancient traditions of all times. Well, it's hard to imagine that one man's vision could cause so much devastation and despair. Mao Zedong, the founder of the People's Republic of China, is often celebrated as a hero who brought unity and progress to his country. But behind the hype and the grandiose monuments lies a darker truth. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the Great Leap Forward, Zedong's disastrous campaign to modernize China that resulted in one of the deadliest famines in history. We'll meet the victims, the survivors, and the perpetrators of this tragedy, and uncover the unspeakable things that Mao and his regime did in the name of progress. From political purges to forced labor, from cannibalism to infanticide, the Great Leap Forward was a real nightmare that lasted for years, leaving scars that are still felt. So buckle up and get ready to dive into a story of tragedy, ambition, and the terrible consequences of unchecked power. If we look back in time, China was undergoing a period of dramatic change in the 1950s, as the Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong, sought to modernize the country and transform it into a socialist utopia. He, in fact, promised China a communist society, free of inequality, poverty, foreign domination, and most importantly, the corruption and revisionism he believed had derailed the Soviet original. Well, peasant farmers in China were now finally granted the land reform they'd long sought. Women were given new employment and marital privileges. Yet in his zeal to harness the people's energy and idealism, Zedong unleashed a series of calamitous social experiments in which millions suffered and died as they made the great leap towards Zedong's new society. Yeah, the Great Leap Forward, launched in 1958, was meant to be the pinnacle of this effort. An ambitious campaign that aimed to rapidly transform China from a purely agrarian society into a modern, industrialized nation. The drive, in fact, focused on increasing agricultural and industrial production by organizing people into large collectives and communes, promoting backyard steel furnaces and setting ambitious production targets. However, despite its lofty goals, the Great Leap Forward turned out to be a catastrophic failure for China and its people due to poorly planned and implemented policies. Getting a bit deeper, Zedong's desire to overtake Western industry and food production led to goals of doubling the production of food and steel in a year. Zealous adherence to this assurance that revolutionary enthusiasm will triumph over all obstacles led competing communes to make absurd pledges about food production, contributing to the dangerous fiction that food was plentiful. And then, fiction turned to famine. Yeah, the most devastating outcome of the Great Leap Forward was the famine spanning over 1959 to 61. One of the most catastrophic famines in human history, with estimates of the death toll ranging from 20 to 45 million people in just 3 years. The combination of bad weather, unrealistic production targets, poor planning, and the emphasis on industrialization over agriculture, on the whole, led to significant decline in food production, where the government, however, continued to export grain to other countries, while millions of Chinese citizens died of starvation. The Great Leap Forward also led to significant economic downturn in China. The emphasis on industrial production led to agricultural neglect, but the government, in contrast, did not have the necessary expertise to manage the industrialization process. These backyard steel furnaces were, in fact, inefficient and wasted resources, resulting in a decline in overall industrial production. Moreover, the government's focus on industrialization meant that it neglected infrastructure and basic services, resulting in food shortages and a drop in rural income, also leading to poor living conditions for the population. This failure of the campaign caused a decay in the overall Chinese economy and a loss of confidence in the Communist Party. The collectivization of agriculture, on the other hand, resulted in the loss of individual ownership and control of land, leading to a decline in productivity and incentives for farmers. The government encouraged people to move from rural areas to cities to work in industrial production, breaking down the family structures and traditional ways of life. The lack of food and resources led to social unrest and violence as well. As part of the Great Leap Forward, Zedong implemented forced labor camps, where millions of people were sent to work. These labor camps were often harsh and dangerous, and many died of overworking and malnutrition. Additionally, the regime used violence as means of control, with torture, executions, and public shaming being common forms of punishment. The drive obviously had a negative impact on the environment as well. The emphasis on industrial production led to pollution and environmental degradation, where the backyard steel furnaces produced toxic emissions, and the overuse of chemical fertilizers and pesticides resulted in soil degradation and pollution of water sources. Moving on. Well, Mao Zedong was not only responsible for the economic failure, but also for political repression on a massive scale. As in, the Great Leap Forward was accompanied by a crackdown on dissent and opposition to the Communist Party, where, in an effort to maintain control, Zedong purged his political opponents, and the people who spoke out against the policies or failed to meet production targets got labelled as counter-revolutionaries and were subjected to imprisonment, torture, and even execution. The regime also targeted intellectuals, artists, and writers, seeing them as a threat to its authority. This led to widespread fear and silenced opposition to his policies. Another atrocity associated with Zedong's regime was the prosecution of religious and ethnic minorities. Tibetan Buddhists and Uyghur Muslims were subjected to forced assimilation and repression of their cultural and religious practices, where thousands of Tibetan monasteries were destroyed and monks and nuns were forced to renounce their faith. Uyghur Muslims were also targeted, with mosques and other religious sites destroyed. However, in 1966, when Zedong realized that China was heading down the capitalist road, he launched the Cultural Revolution to restore Maoist ideology, in which students were encouraged to question authority at all levels, and terrible violence against intellectuals and other subversives literally swept the country. Moreover, Zedong's Red Guards assaulted the Four Olds, say the old habits, the beliefs, the customs, and the culture. Books were destroyed and museums were looted. Schools, universities, and hospitals were forced to close, and intellectuals were also sent to the countryside to be re-educated. Offices and factories were in chaos, as well as infighting within the guards led to anarchy. Many people were imprisoned, tortured, or executed for their perceived disloyalty to Zedong and even the Communist Party. China was soon engulfed in a state of perpetual revolution until 1976, when Zedong's death finally signaled the end of the Cultural Revolution and the re-emergence of a China truly focused on stability and prosperity. So you see, Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward was a tragic drive that resulted in immeasurable suffering and loss of life. It's a stark reminder of the devastating consequences that can occur when a government prioritizes ideology over the well-being of its people. However, the Chinese government later acknowledged the failures of the Great Leap Forward and shifted towards more pragmatic economic policies under the leadership of Deng Xiaoping in the late 1970s. Well, as we reflect on the events of the Great Leap Forward, it's important to remember that we have a responsibility to stand up against abuses of power and to advocate for the rights and well-being of people. Indeed, by standing informed and speaking out against injustice, we can help prevent such atrocities from happening again. Well, there you have it. We hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel without any delay. Make sure you turn on post notifications, and also let us know in the comment section about your views on this complex and controversial legacy of Mao Zedong and his regime, with some hailing him as a visionary leader who brought unity and prosperity to China, while others see him as a ruthless dictator who caused untold suffering and hardship. Thanks for watching Unthinkable Past. Until the next time we meet, continue learning and stay healthy. Goodbye.